Hi, my name is Trevor Elkins. I'm the mayor of the Village of Newburgh Heights. We appreciate you taking the time to join us to learn a little bit about what a transfer for the Village of Newburgh Heights into the Cuyahoga Heights School District will do for you and for the school district as a whole. We appreciate your time and looking forward to any questions you may have after the presentation. Now, we're aware of the fact that there are negative stereotypes and rumor, innuendo, and a whole host of less than positive thoughts about Newburgh Heights and the community as a whole. We understand that, and I'm here to acknowledge that for a number of years, maybe even decades, Newburgh Heights was mismanaged and poorly run. All I can tell you is that was then, this is now. I don't intend to go through the history of Newburgh Heights because we can't change that except to say that we have really spent the past 5 years laying a foundation for positive growth and development that we believe will help the school district as a whole. One of the things that's important to know is that the revitalization of Newburgh Heights has not been an accident. We have a strategy and a plan, and progress has been thought out, and we really have adopted and started to use over the past 5 or 6 years or so business practices that are thought out for the long term and long range, which has allowed us to lay a really, really solid foundation for our revitalization. We've taken a two-prong approach to turning Newburgh Heights into the kind of community where people want to move to and stay and raise a family. And the first step that we acknowledged was it was time to have a plan that was thought out and developed for not just our immediate needs in the immediate year that we're in, but 5, 10, and 20 years down the road so that the community could continue to build on the foundation that we've laid in the past few years. So we set about revising our master plan. When I took over as mayor in 2012, that master plan was already 15 years old. So we updated that. And what that essentially did was it told us our strengths and weaknesses and what we needed to do to improve on either of those. We then went on and created a 5-year financial plan that we update annually. My experience prior to becoming mayor was I have spent 10 years in municipal finance, so I'm very familiar with how government accounting works. So what we did and kind of created a financial roadmap so we could use to accomplish our goals. We've modernized our zoning code. This allows us to help and work with developing various parts of the community, particularly our commercial zone along Harvard Avenue. We've created a Harvard Avenue development plan. We view Newburgh Heights as the gem that it is because of all of the really nice tree-lined boulevards and homes. But Harvard Avenue is what most people see of Newburgh Heights. So if that's the impression that you have of Newburgh Heights, you're really missing out on a beautiful community that's walkable, where people know each other and have lived here for generations. We've also established a CIC, which is a Community Improvement Corporation. This allows us to engage the business community on terms that they're more familiar with. And then we've engaged a retail recruitment firm to help us attract and bring in businesses for our Harvard Avenue corridor that we are developing. Evidence of that corridor is pretty clear. If you drive down Harvard today as opposed to 5 years ago, you're going to see very few residential properties on Harvard, and you're going to see a diminishing number of obsolete and outdated commercial structures. Our goal is to turn Harvard into a boulevard where people can see Newburgh Heights through a different lens. So we set about creating a plan, and we've started to execute that plan. What has that execution been? Well, it's always really about people when you think about it. So what we did is we set about and started to professionalize our personnel. We have all new department heads in the last 4 or 5 years. They are very qualified and have experience in the various fields that they work in, whether that be police, fire, service, building. We implemented a stringent building code enforcement program, and we've been working that very, very hard for the past 5 years or so. And that is really because we view, like most people, we view our number one asset to be our housing stock. So if we have made a special focus on preserving the property values and eliminating blight in Newburgh Heights. We've modernized our facilities and equipment. We have spent $6.5 million building a new village hall and police station, as well as renovating a 100-year-old or roughly 100-year-old warehouse for a new fire station and service garage, and we spent about $2.5 million on that property. We've targeted and attacked blight. As I mentioned, it's a focus for us because just a little bit of property that's severely deteriorating can really have a terrible effect on the community as a whole. And we've been very, very successful acquiring nearly $1 million through grants to go after this problem. And we've wiped out 58 properties in Newburgh Heights that were either obsolete residential properties or commercial structures that were not being utilized. And then we set about working toward acquiring and bringing assets into the community. We've been very successful. At this point, we're at about $30 million in public and private investments in the village, whether it be retail, new retail facilities, or roads, sewers, or the buildings that we've mentioned already that we constructed. And then, of course, we created a side lot program because once you tear a property down, you now have a vacant lot. Those lots really don't do you any good unless there's a number of them that are accumulated near each other. But we have a number of lots where we've demolished obsolete and poorly maintained homes. So what we wanted to do is take those properties and offer them to the owner-occupied adjacent property owner so that they can be consolidated with their current lot. A new property cannot be built. We consolidate that with the current lot, and that allows us to now have a much larger property. It's much more appealing, but more importantly, it takes that vacant lot that's not generating tax revenue and puts it back on the rolls. So the property values go up, that vacant lot is now on the tax roll, and we're generating more interest in a home because the property value is higher, but we're also generating more property tax value. So that's what we've done over the past 5 or so years, and here's what we're positioning ourselves to accomplish in the next 4 to 5 years, and then as we build into the next decade or so. One of the key things that we did, as I mentioned, is we professionalized our building department, but we also made our building department full-time. So we have multiple inspectors, we have a full-time commissioner and a full-time administrative assistant that really, as I've noted, focuses on making sure that not only are property values maintained to the code, but there's an added emphasis on aesthetic appearance, proper painting, making sure that trees and bushes are properly, cut down when they're dead or groomed as they need to be. So that will continue to remain our focus. We've also established, as I noted, Harvard Avenue Retail District, and we're going to build on that. We've got a couple properties right now that are almost an acre in size along Harvard Avenue that we're actively marketing and developing now, and we expect in the next 12 to 18 months we'll see some activity as far as an amenity in the community to kind of anchor that particular district for us. We are working with Cuyahoga County and the RTA to repurpose the vacant bus garage that's on the western end of our community, and in the hopes that we can add about 200 to 250 jobs to that facility in the next 18 months or so. In addition to that, we work with the City of Cleveland, or we are working with the City of Cleveland on the development of Ross Park, which is a 13-acre park that's currently owned by the City of Cleveland, but within the municipal boundaries of Newburgh Heights. And we have an agreement in principle to purchase that park, and we're hoping and believe that that park can be repurposed and create about a $4 to $5 million property tax boom for Newburgh Heights. In addition, we will continue pursuing funding for infrastructure improvements to replace aging sewer lines, water lines, and, of course, repair our streets and sidewalks. We continue and work toward improving the quality of life for our residents. This is really one of the things that we do because we believe in building a neighborhood foundation, cohesion, and pride. And that's why we're looking to transition into the Cuyahoga Heights local schools, because we want our children to go to school together. We want them to have opportunities to grow up together and go through the same experiences that we've experienced as children that have the benefit of attending an excellent school system from K or pre-K through 12. As you can see in this slide, and if you take a look at the map, Newburgh Heights really already identifies in many ways with the Cuyahoga Heights school system and the communities of the school district. We view ourselves in the same respect, and we already geographically fit seamlessly into the district. Our children already play sports together. Our families already worship together and attend church services. Our safety forces already provide mutual aid to the other communities regularly. I mean, we are good enough to put a fire out at your house, or we're good enough to, assist one of your maybe parents or elderly family members with a heart attack or life-saving medical services. But our children should also be attending school together so that we continue to build a cohesion and grow as a greater school district community. All the villages, as you probably are aware, already share dispatch services together. And some of our children already attend the district as tuition students. What we're looking to do is take the next logical step in helping the school district by providing a stable student body population, as well as a revenue source for the district, and assist in the process of growing our communities even more closely together. Newburgh Heights is home to roughly 160 school-age children. As you can see, about 99 of them attend the Washington Park Community School. We anticipate most of those students would likely transfer into the Cuyahoga Heights schools. 34 attend Cleveland Municipal School District. Of those 34, 11 go to school here in Newburgh Heights. We have a high school near the golf course at the Horticultural School, which is a Cleveland school district, and would remain part of the Cleveland School District if a transfer is completed. 6 currently attend the Cuyahoga Heights schools, and that number fluctuates anywhere between 4 to a dozen any given year. And 20 or so of our children attend various parochial, private, and charter schools. And we regularly graduate students from schools like Beaumont or Ignatius, St. Joe's, Padua, Holy Name, and of course, almost every year we have a student or two that graduates from the Cuyahoga Heights school system. Adding 160 school-age children to the district would roughly increase the grade level by about 12 students per grade. Now, that still puts the district only at about 70 kids per grade overall, if you're using an average, and it increases the typical class size to about 17 or 18 kids per class, which is typically regarded as an optimal number of students from an efficiency spending standpoint, but also from the ability to teach. As I had mentioned in a previous slide, we're pretty aware of the fact here in Newburgh Heights because there is so much cross-community activity. The school district is full of residents and former families and people that used to live in Newburgh Heights or whose parents used to live in Newburgh Heights. So we're very aware of some of the negative perception that some members of the community have about Newburgh Heights. But what I want to do is I really want to go right at the heart of some of these issues and talk about what these mean, and talk about the rumor and the innuendo and the negative stereotypes that do exist, and see if we can't really dispel those for what they are, and that is just a lack of information about the community as a whole. So, maybe one of the biggest rumor is if Newburgh Heights enters the Cuyahoga Heights schools, there's going to be an influx of students and new families moving to Newburgh Heights just to take advantage of the schools. Well, this really isn't possible, and let me explain why. First of all, in 2012, when I became mayor, there were approximately 970 housing units in the community. In the past 5 years, we demolished 56 total structures, but 50 of those were obsolete residential properties. And that eliminated 95 housing units, which were almost all rental, with the exception of one, which would have become a rental because the property owner had passed away and there was no family that wanted the property anymore. Since 2012, we've reduced the rental rate in Newburgh Heights by 7%. and we have are anticipating another 7% reduction in the next 5 years through continued code enforcement and demolition. So, of the 875 housing units that still exist in Newburgh Heights, there are only 4.5% that are vacant. And so there really isn't a place for this huge influx of people to move. Now, how do we know those are vacant? Well, we have a vacant property registry, but our building department, our fire department, and our police department, the size of our community allows us to really know when a building is empty, when it's coming open, and we have a very tight-knit community. So it's not uncommon to have a resident call and say, hey, so-and-so is moving out. Can you keep an eye on the property so it doesn't get vandalized? Or can you keep an eye on the property so that if somebody else moves in, their rental inspection is done? So there really isn't a whole lot of place for people to move. What is 4.5% of 875? Well, it's about 40 properties. So as you can see, that's really not that many. You're not looking, it's not like you're going to see 200 or 300 new kids. It just isn't going to happen. Using the average family size, you're probably going to see at most, if every single property all at once is occupied, you're going to see maybe 40 new children. So at most, and given the school district's need for additional enrollment, that's also not necessarily a bad thing. There was some, and there is some rumors, and this is kind of shocking to me because it's not based in any real logic. But there's one of the rumors is if Newburgh Heights enters the Cuyahoga Heights schools, there'd be an adverse impact on the housing stock or housing values of the district. Well, frankly, this just defies the principles of real estate valuation. The way that property values are typically determined is based on sales that occur within the past year that are also within a 1 mile radius of that particular property. So if you take the property that's closest to homes in Newburgh Heights and you draw a circle around that home, the home that's closest to the school district in Newburgh Heights, you are going to have about 40, slightly fewer than 40 residential properties in the school system that would fall into that comparable radius. Now, it also doesn't make sense because the reality is a home in Newburgh Heights is about, the median value is about $75,000. The median value of the homes in Cuyahoga Heights Village and Brooklyn Heights Village are about a little less than double that. But the reality is part of the value of a home is the school district. So if it is anticipated if Newburgh Heights were to enter the school district, our property values in a 10-year period would likely double. This would only serve to improve and protect the property values in the communities of Brooklyn Heights, Cuyahoga Heights, and Valley View. So it would actually work in reverse of this idea that the housing stock or the housing values in the school district would be diminished, because the opposite would be true. As our property values rise, it further goes and moves toward protecting the property values of the school district. One of the other things that I've heard mentioned is, well, the rental rates, we wouldn't get as much money for rental. Well, the reality is as I noted, our rental vacancy rates and our rate of rental properties is diminishing on an annual basis. Currently, a rental in Newburgh Heights runs for about $800 to $900. A whole house sometimes will go for as much as $950 for a whole house in the Village of Newburgh Heights. Now, if we became part of the school district, you would actually see those rates increase. And so it would also have little to no adverse impact simply because there aren't that many there, and there are fewer and fewer on an annual basis. In addition, were we to become part of the school district, what you would see is a further reduction in the number of rental properties anyways, as the community stabilizes from the perspective of property values. Folks are going to want to stay in the community, live in the community, purchase their homes that they're in, and then turn those homes that might have been rentals, those will become owner-occupied as time goes on. Some of the additional misinformation that's being circulated revolves around the impact that the students from Newburgh Heights would have on the budget. The reality is, and the facts are, if Newburgh Heights were to enter the Cuyahoga Heights schools, Cuyahoga Heights schools will pay more taxes. That's the rumor. The fact is, the additional students being added to the new Cuyahoga Heights schools from Newburgh Heights will have a net positive budget impact because there's anticipated to have little need for additional hiring to make the transition work. Another fact is using Cuyahoga Heights' own financial projection, and I'll elaborate on this later, is that it will require a $10 million tax levy within the next few years just for the district to break even if Newburgh Heights is not added to the district. There are major financial issues on the horizon regardless of whether or not Newburgh Heights or students are added to the district. They're going to be far worse if Newburgh Heights students are not added to the district. One of the other rumors out there, and I didn't write it on this slide as well, the only reason that you want to join the school district is because your children attend the school and you don't want to pay tuition anymore. The truth is that's kind of a cheap shot, and we started this process before my children attended the Cuyahoga Heights schools. My children attend the Cuyahoga Heights schools because I believe in the teachers there, I believe in the education system, and I know that they're going to get a good quality education in the Cuyahoga Heights schools. It really has nothing to do with the tuition because there are plenty of schools that my children could have attended and received funding for through the Cleveland Transformation Plan, but that's not what we believed in or what we wanted to do. One of the other rumors being circulated is there's just not enough room in the Cuyahoga Heights schools and the current buildings if we add the 160 or so students from Newburgh Heights. Well, the Cuyahoga Heights schools have the capacity for up to 1,250 students. Even with the additional students from Newburgh Heights, that number is closer to about 900. So we're quite a ways from the capacity and hardly pushing the barriers on that. Finally, Newburgh Heights children, and this is probably the most disturbing rumor or statement that I've heard made and that I do hear made on a regular basis. Newburgh Heights children are not up to the educational standards of Cuyahoga Heights schools. This is really pretty unfortunate that in 2017 we have this mentality. Children have an amazing capacity for empathy, sympathy, and to set aside some of the cynicism that we as adults have. Finally, there really is no evidence that this is true. In fact, anecdotally, if you look at the Newburgh Heights children that do attend Cuyahoga Heights schools, they perform just fine. They perform on par or better with the students that live in the communities that make up the Cuyahoga Heights schools. And then the teachers will tell you if you place the students in a lineup, you cannot tell where they live based on their performance. There's no way to look at a student and say, oh, yeah, you're from Newburgh Heights, and I know that because your grades are this. And you're from Valley View, and I know that's true because you have these amazing grades. That's just not how it works. And because the teachers and the staff are so good at the Cuyahoga Heights schools, is that even if there were some students that were a little bit behind, it would take a year or two at most to get them up to speed. And then as we move through the system and all of the students matriculate from pre-K through 12th grade, you would find that our students from Newburgh Heights would perform on par with the students that live and are from the district, as well as the tuition students that attend the program. Here we can see the serious issue that the district is currently facing as it relates to enrollment. Over a 10-year period, there's a substantial decline from a high in around 2008. The number, unfortunately, is declining, and there really is no end in sight. The optimal number, based on the recent enrollment committee, which is a subcommittee of the finance committee of the school board, is the optimal number is about 1,040 students, which is roughly 80 per grade in the entire district. The decline in enrollment is not necessarily a bad thing. What that means is that people move into the district, they like it, they stay there, they retire there, and they don't leave because the communities are run in a way that they're comfortable with and they provide amenities. Downside is, as people stay longer and they get older, they obviously don't have the number of children that they had because, as you get older, you stop having children. So in order to buffer this, what has happened is the school district has, of course, implemented the tuition program. And currently, at the end of this year, 2017, there's about 756 students, according to the Ohio Department of Education and the Cuyahoga Heights Schools information that attend the district. Of those, 79 are tuition students, which means only 677 students live in the Cuyahoga Heights School District communities. Now, this is a serious problem for the district, because as the size of the community shrinks, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, there are additional pressures, both economically and politically, that are placed on the district that are going to further cause problems. So to summarize, it's not necessarily a bad thing in the sense that the enrollment at the district is declining, because that means the communities that make up the district are really places that people want to stay. However, for the very real practical matter of the district itself, this is a serious problem that has no end in sight. But there are some opportunities, and Newburgh Heights becoming a member of the community, or the school system, is one of those opportunities to turn this arrow around. As I had mentioned, enrollment is a serious factor. The optimal goal of the administration is about 80 students per grade level. This is a number that would maximize the budget and utilize the facilities in a way that was most efficient. Right now, counting tuition students, the average grade is about 58 students per grade. And that number is declining the lower the grades you move into. Adding Newburgh Heights as 160 students overall increases the average to about 70 students per grade, still under what the administration considers optimal, but also still at risk of a situation as it relates to a downturn in the economy, because if the economy turns down and people begin to lose their employment, they're not going to be able to afford the tuition program, and this is going to cause a further issue as it relates to enrollment. Fewer students very simply means there's going to be fewer electives, fewer extracurriculars. Certain AP courses, languages, and electives are going to be at risk, because you need a certain critical mass of students, a certain number of students, to make it worth continuing that program. Bottom line, teaching and support positions are going to be at risk. As the enrollment declines, if there's no need for a particular type of student, or a teacher rather, because there aren't students to attend that particular elective or that particular class, that position will get eliminated. And that's just math. Programs such as bands, clubs, orchestra, those also could be at risk, as well as certain athletic programs that have a smaller number of participants. There is going to be pressure from the state of Ohio to merge with a larger school district. If this happens, the downside is it's really not going to be on terms that the Cuyahoga Heights schools might be able to negotiate on their own, whereas this transfer that's being proposed of adding Newburgh to the district is a real opportunity to create terms that the school district as a whole can be comfortable with. And then finally, there's going to be a higher tax burden on residents of the school district, because operating costs don't go down or not reduced proportionate to enrollment. Just because you have fewer students in a classroom doesn't mean you shrink the size of your buildings. The buildings and the infrastructure remain the same. If I've got to drive to Schreiber Road to pick up one student, I still have to drive to Schreiber Road. Or I could drive to Schreiber Road and pick up 14 students. Either way, the cost is the same, but the operational cost for the number of students doesn't go down. As I had noted, there was a subcommittee formed about what to do with enrollment matters. And one of the efforts, of course, is to try and boost and pump up the tuition program. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with the tuition program. In fact, I would recommend, if I had to say so, that program be continued even if Newburgh Heights were added to the district, because it helps get to that number of 80 students per grade. But not sure overall what's going to happen with addressing this problem moving forward, because this is a very serious issue for the school district and for the education of your children as it relates to having the well-rounded background and activities that the district has become accustomed to offering. I would add, and I'm going to add again, is that, one way to buffer against the declining enrollment, of course, is to add the 160 students, the stable student body population from Newburgh Heights. as you can see here, this is a 5-year budget forecast taken directly from the Cuyahoga Heights Schools and provided to the state of Ohio. And this is required by law to be done on an annual basis. If you take a look at the top line, which is the tangible personal property tax, and it's a tax that the state of Ohio is phasing out. You'll see that in 2017, 18, 19, 20, and 21, there's a placeholder number put in there. Well, this is a pretty optimistic number already, and if you take a look at 2016, it's greater than what was even provided then. There is talk that this number could be cut in half as early as with the next budget, which begins very soon. It begins in July of 2017. So as you can see, the forecast for the tangible personal property tax is a little bit optimistic. In fact, as you move on further into 20 and 21, it's extremely optimistic. As that number is reduced, further pressure is going to be placed in the budget. Now, if you scroll down, if you look down a couple rows, you'll see excess revenue 6.010, excess revenue and other financing sources, over or under expenses and other financing. In 2017, the Cuyahoga Heights Schools are projecting and believe they're going to finish with a modest surplus of about $389,000. Fast forward to 2019 and the red block, and you can see that quickly goes south. And as you move toward 19, 20, 21, you begin running $1 million deficit in 19, 1.6 million in 20, and then a 2.2 million in 2021. And that number is assuming that the tangible personal property tax figure of $906,078 remains the same. So if that number goes down, which it is likely to go down, and probably fairly substantially, $300,000 or $400,000 in fact, if it's decreased, that deficit, annual deficit, is going to grow very quickly. Now, scrolling down to the last line, this is what's in the bank. This is the amount of money that's in the bank or projected to be in the bank, which would allow the district to operate for a year or 2 or 3 with a negative annual budget figure. But as you can see, you fast forward a quick couple years here, about 4 years now, 2021 is going to be the last year that the district will be in a position to operate as it currently does, running the deficit it is projected to run and likely to grow. So as you can see, the numbers are pretty staggering, and they're going to get and become pretty alarming very, very quickly. So it's time. This is a perfect opportunity for us to assist the school district in this transition to happen with from the financial side as well as the enrollment side of the equations. What does this mean overall for the school district finances? Well, just to give you an idea, in order for the district to make up that kind of annual deficit, you're looking at least a 10 mil levy approval just to break even in the next 4 years. That's an astronomical number, and that's also assuming that the tangible personal property tax, or TPP, is not further cut, and that placeholder number sticks. So the number could grow and is likely to grow without any other activity being taken. So the finances simply make sense, as well as the enrollment issues, and through a transfer negotiated collaboratively, and that means the Cuyahoga Heights Schools, the Cleveland City Schools, and the Newburgh Heights administration sit down and work together for a transition that is positive for everyone. That would add immediately $1 million to the Cuyahoga Heights Schools on an annual basis for the first year of the transfer. Additionally, through improved property values that we would see over the next 5 to 10 years, and continued business attraction, maintenance of our housing, and all of the things that we noted that we were working on and had been working on for the past 5 years and will continue to work on as we revitalize our community, you're going to see the school district is going to see another $650,000 to $750,000 annually in the next 5 years. And then, of course, the school district already has the capacity to educate the Newburgh Heights student population without negatively impacting the budget. So any additional students added to the school district, these resources and these funds added or transferred from Newburgh Heights to the Cuyahoga Heights schools really only serve to relieve that pressure, that pretty severe pressure that's being placed and going to be placed on the school district. So what is the process? Well, you've probably heard from some folks within the Cuyahoga Heights schools that there's a process, and Newburgh Heights needs to follow that process. And that's exactly what we're doing. We have filed our petitions with the Cleveland School District to start the legal process, and we've been notified that we have met that threshold. The next step is for us to work together to try and craft something that's to the benefit of everybody involved, the Cleveland Municipal School District, the Cuyahoga Heights Schools, and the Newburgh Heights Schools. And we're literally required by law to make a good faith effort to create a transfer plan. One of the other concerns that's often stated is, well, why would Cleveland let you go? And it's the answer is pretty simple. Cleveland is the philosophy of Mayor Jackson and the Cleveland School Board has changed from when we attempted to make this effort back in the 90s. And the effort in having met with Frank Jackson multiple times on this issue, as well as the CEO of the Cleveland school system, and had a conversation, their philosophy has changed to the point of it's our job to make sure children get educated. And if that means they can go to a different school district to do that, then that's what we're going to do. So what I'm saying is I've received assurances that if we can work with the Cuyahoga Heights schools collaboratively and their administration and their school board to create a transition to bring our 160 students to the district, then the city of Cleveland is agreeing to let us make that transfer. But what about the money that Cleveland's going to lose? Well, the reality is Cleveland is going to lose less than 1%, less than 1/10 of 1% of their overall revenue, or about $1.4 million. Now, Cleveland Schools has about $1 billion budget. So that $1.4 million really means nothing to them. It's kind of couch cushion money, if you will. However, the dollars we bring to the Cuyahoga Heights schools are substantial for the district because obviously it's about economy of scale. Why is it $1.4 million for Cleveland schools, but only about $1 million for the Cuyahoga Heights schools? Well, there's a number of reasons. It's the number of students, and it's the number of it's the tax rate as well. The tax rates are different. Well, Walton Hills already tried this. It didn't work with them. What's different? Well, the reason the Walton Hills effort didn't work is because the Bedford schools said no from the beginning. That's why it's so important, and that's why we're trying to ask the Cuyahoga Heights schools to engage us now on the front end of this legal process, because that, with Cleveland schools saying yes and Cuyahoga Heights saying, okay, we're gonna negotiate a transfer plan that's fair on the front end, that opens the door for statewide approval, because Cleveland's saying yes, and that's very different than what Bedford did with Walton Hills. Well, what happens once the transfer plan is created? The Cleveland Municipal School District must submit that plan to the State Board of Education prior to April 1st of 2018. From there, the board has a few months to review the plan based on a 25-factor review. We're working with one of the most preeminent law firms dealing with education issues in the state of Ohio to address these kind of things and ensure that we meet that 25-factor threshold. We are very, very comfortable and very, very confident that if we can all sit down at the table together, Cleveland schools, Cuyahoga Heights schools, and Newburgh Heights, and work on a transfer plan openly and collaboratively, that we will meet that 25-factor threshold. And then within 30 days of approval from the State Board of Education, Cleveland School District must consider passing a resolution approving the transfer. Following that, the next step would be the Cuyahoga Heights School District doing the same. Optimistically, if we can get together and work on a plan on how to make this happen in a way that benefits the students, in a way that benefits the taxpayers and the school district, protects jobs, protects extracurriculars and activities, and provides for the education of all of our children, beginning in the fall of 2019, the transfer would take effect, and we would become partners in the community. I understand that I'm an intense guy, and that this is we've been aggressive with trying to reach out and open a dialogue and start a conversation, and that it's a little bit more forward than the Cuyahoga Heights schools may be accustomed to. But that's because the timing is so important, and we're trying to get something positive accomplished before it's too late. I feel very strongly about this because I believe in the significant benefit for everyone involved: the children of Newburgh Heights, the families of Newburgh Heights, the taxpayers of the school district, and of course the children of the school district as well, because they're at risk. There's a real risk of losing some of the amenities of the school district and putting the quality education of the district in jeopardy because of serious financial problems that are looming. I get it, and I recognize that there are benefits to Newburgh Heights. Those benefits will be shared with the Cuyahoga Heights schools once we become partners. It's not as if anybody in Newburgh Heights is asking for a charity. We have no issue whatsoever in paying our taxes. In fact, we're open to paying an additional tax during a transitionary period, so that everybody understands that we're committed to becoming real, genuine partners in this effort to create and continue to build a fantastic school system that already exists, and we're looking to be able to have our children take advantage of the high-quality education along with your children and have them grow and develop a community together, an educational community together. We understand that there are residents of the school district that are opposed to this. What our hope when sharing this PowerPoint and this information is that we can start a conversation that's open and collaborative, and more of a partnership in a dialogue and how to make the district better for everybody involved, the children of Newburgh Heights as well as the children of the school district. We're not trying to circumvent any process. We're not trying to go around any rules. We are working through the legal process, but we also want to work through the process of neighbors and have conversations and address issues of concern. And if there are suggestions to making the proposal or the effort better, we want to have that conversation. We want to know what the concerns of the school district are, legitimate, factual concerns, and then see if we can address them in the transition plan. So thank you for taking the time to listen to the PowerPoint today and hear what we have to say. We believe joining the Cuyahoga Heights School District is a win-win solution, both for Newburgh Heights as well as for all the communities and the children involved. If you have questions, feel free to email those questions to me at t.elkins@newburghhtsoh.gov. Again, thank you so much for your time, and we're hoping to work with you directly and build a collaborative plan that benefits all of our communities.